We are doing our first canning project on the channel, and what do you know, it's Canuary. Didn't even know that was a thing. I was not into canning, homesteading, preserving last year in January. So I had this recipe for cranberry mustard picked out to do this month. We have a half hog coming towards the end of the month. It seems like this will be absolutely delicious with some ham and in general just to have around. So mustard takes a little bit to make because the mustard seeds have to soak. So we're going to get a cup of vinegar. We're going to get a cup of vinegar boiling here, and then we'll add the mustard seeds. Okay, so we have the vinegar at a boil. So what we're going to do is add the yellow mustard seeds, 2/3 of a cup. We had these out during the Azure haul the other day, and I did not preserve them because I knew we were wanting to do a project with them. All right, so we'll just stir these in, and we're going to cover this. And what we want to happen is for those seeds to absorb the moisture. The cookbook says an hour and a half. I find that oftentimes the seeds are able to absorb the moisture quicker than that, but we'll set the timer for an hour and check back then. Okay, we're gonna get the canner going. Oops. This is just a small batch. We're doing this in small jars. Since I don't think cranberry mustard is going to be an everyday thing, we'll just want enough on an occasion when we want to have it. So we'll let that heat up while we're finishing the recipe. We got our mustard seeds put away, and I think this is an old marinara jar. All right, we're going to add our mustard seeds that have soaked in most of that vinegar. As you can see, that only took like 35 minutes. Then it calls for a cup of water and a tablespoon of the Worcestershire. All right, we'll get this blended. All right, we have this blended pretty well. There's still a little bit of texture left, and I think that's how we'll like it. So now we need to add the cranberries. All right, so this calls for 2 3/4 cup of cranberries, fresh or frozen. I'll be interested to see how the frozen cranberries do in the blender. I probably should have gotten them out to thaw a little bit. Let me tell you, this 5 pounds of cranberries from Azure has really come in handy. All right, now we'll blend these up. Okay, this looks like a smoothie, but smells like mustard. We'll move over to this side. So we're gonna put this back in the saucepan. Okay, now we're going to stir this mixture and bring it to a boil. I think it'll take a while because those cranberries were frozen, so it's literally like a smoothie right now. So we'll let this kind of liquefy, and then we'll be back to add the rest of the ingredients. Okay, so this really hasn't gotten to the point of boiling. It's still kind of thick, like a smoothie. I've added water, didn't really make a difference. So we're gonna add the rest of the ingredients because essentially this is already mustard consistency. So a 1/4 cup of dry mustard. And then 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. This shares a lot of similar ingredients to the cranberry sauce. I think the sugar helped our case a little bit here. And then finally, we're gonna do 2½ teaspoons of allspice. All right, we'll let that cook together. Okay, so we're gonna say that this is done cooking. Oops, that got to a boil, and it did not need to get that hot. So we'll get these jars out of here. Okay, this calls for a 1/4 inch headspace. So let's fill the pints first. Okay, we'll go through and debubble these. Now we will check the headspace. This only needs 1/4 inch. Good. Good. I'd say we're on the mark with all of them. So let's get these rims wiped off. All right, so the jars are ready to go. Got the lids on. These are my ForJars lids. Love them. Okay, now that we have lids, we're just gonna put the rims on to what they say finger tight. So do a spin and then one more. You're not doing anything too tight, just enough to make sure it stays on. And the canning will work its magic. Let's get these back in the canner. Cookbook calls for 10 minutes. Because of my altitude, I am going to process for 15 once it comes to a boil. I will link the instructions for this recipe or type them out if I can't find them online in the description. Okay, so we'll turn that up, and then once that gets to a boil, we are going to set the timer. Now I'm just going to funnel the rest of what's in here into this pint jar, and then we're going to be able to utilize this, just have it in the fridge and use it this week. Okay, so we have about this much for in the fridge. I am going to put it in the fridge, then we'll do a taste test. You can't taste test warm mustard, it's just not good, doesn't give the full effect. And this color is so funny to me. It's not super appetizing. It reminds me of those colored ketchups that came out probably in the late 90s or early 2000s. It's just a little odd, but it smells good. So we'll be back when these are done processing and we can do a taste test with the mustard once it's cooled. Timer just went off for 15 minutes, so we're gonna turn off the heat, take off the lid, and let it rest there for 5 minutes before we take them out. Okay, it is time for the taste test. We have this last beautiful wedge of sourdough that Reno made. I'm gonna make us each a little crostini. I feel like this is inspired by what Reno made us for dinner yesterday. Oh, did you hear the pop? We're getting seals on our jars. So I had this in the fridge. This is just cracking me up, the color of this. So we're gonna get a good layer of our cranberry mustard on there. It's pretty chilled. So we have the mustard spread. Now I got out little pieces of our cheddar from Azure, and I pulled some pork that we had leftovers. I think we can just make little sandwiches. Okay. Let's see. Definitely mustard. Maybe a little more cranberry next time, I'm not sure, but really good. Definitely something we will use. Sandwiches, I think it'll be nice to serve at Easter with ham. I'd say that's a winner. Definitely I like this better than the beer mustard we made over the summer. So happy Canuary. Thanks for joining me for my first canning project of the month. I also am just so excited for summer again, to get back in harvesting season, preserving season. When you're in the thick of it, it becomes a burden and an annoyance, but I hadn't had that canner out in months, and it felt great to have it out and be back at it. So please subscribe, follow along as we'll do some canning projects this month. We're doing the 3 Rivers Pantry Challenge. We're gonna start garden planning. We're gonna get some chickens. So lots going on. Make sure you subscribe to follow along. We'll see you next time.